Hello, my name is Robert and I want to talk in this podcast about the inner thoughts. I talked in the last podcast about external thoughts and how is forming the external thoughts. And now in this podcast I will like to explain you about how the inner thoughts is forming, internal thoughts. I told you in that podcast when you close the eyes and you stay in meditation, you remains with yourself, with your mind, with your internal thoughts. Because when you close the eyes, you disconnect from the outside input, for the external inputs. Okay, our sense, visual, smell, auditive, remains in connection with the external worlds all the time, but when we close the eyes, our visual sense will close. We remain with the smell and auditive sense, and also with the breathing. When we close the eyes, we remain with ourselves, with our internal thoughts. And if you analyze these thoughts and the process of forming these thoughts, I do that, you will realize that it's in connection with something that it's inside you. For example, problem that you do not solve it in the past. If you have a problem that you don't solve it, that problem, it will appear when you close the eyes and you stay in meditation. And if one thought was forming regarding that problem or in connection with that problem, other thoughts starts to forming. Other thoughts start to generate it simply because you form a single thought. Okay? And I will give you an example to understand. I stay to meditate in one day, and I must to solve a problem with one of my clients. I must to send an email. And I start, when I stay to meditate, I start to think about that email, how I wrote, what I put in there, what I said to the clients, what is the composition, what is my approach regarding the problem, and so on. And I realized that I have a lot of thoughts regarding that email, which is a simple email, a fucking simple email. And I stop the meditation, I go compose the email and send the email, 10 minutes, and then I will return back to meditation. And everything was solved. No thoughts about the problem. No thoughts about the email, because I solved the problem. This is one of the solution to remain without thoughts, without internal thoughts. Internal thoughts also, it's forming regarding your desire, or in connection with your desire, within connection with your problem, within connection with your attachments, because all kind of these things is called attachments. All the spiritual way discuss of these attachments, also the Christianity discuss with this attachment. Jesus said, give everything that you have to the poor people. Why? Because in this way you broke the connection between you and that attachment. If you don't have it, you don't have the attachment with that thing, with that problem, with that. Okay? What is this attachments? So that's why every spiritual way and every religion said, drop up your attachments. If you don't have attachments, you don't have thoughts. Because all the thoughts that you have, internal thoughts, it's in connection with these attachments. What is these attachments? And what is the explanation of these attachments? These attachments is not the physical things. For example, I have a phone, this phone. Okay? I do not have an attachment with this phone. Why? Because the attachment, it's a mental connection that is created between you and that object, or on that problem or on that event, if you do not create a mental connection between you and that object, that is not an attachment. If you stay and stay very, very focus on that, you will see that the attachments it's forming between our mind and the objects when we have problem with that object. For example, if I do not have problem with this phone, I do not have any attachments. I do not think to this phone when I stay in meditation, when I try to stay calm. Or I do not think to the phone if I do not have a desire regarding the phone. Because if I have a desire, I said, okay, this phone, I want to have this phone. For example, I want to have an iPhone and I do not have an iPhone. Or I want to have a Samsung and I have a Motorola, this is a Motorola. Yeah. So if I create a desire, I create a mental connection between me and that object. And this mental connection, it's the attachments that will generate thoughts. If you broke this mental connection, you will remain without thoughts. Your mind, it is not connected with that event, with that object, with that something like this. Okay, I will give you another example to understand. Think that you are on the meeting, for informal meeting on a beer with the friends, and one of your friends starts to talking about quantum physics, for example. I will give you an extreme situation, an extreme example. You will participate on the discussion, you listen what he talk about, the quantum physics, but you are not in connection with the quantum physics. It's not related to you. It's not related with your job activities, it's not related with your, let's say, other things that it's interested you. So you discuss with him because it is your friend and you listen what he said on that beer, on that informal meeting. And after you leave the meeting, you have no thoughts regarding the quantum physics. You have no thoughts regarding what your friends tell you about that. Why? Because you are not interested about quantum physics. It's not in your area of expertise, it's not in your interest. You don't have desire, you do not have a mental connection between you and quantum physics. So all the mental connection that we create in time, it is with things, with events, with facts, with physical objects, that it is our area of interest. If we do not have an area of interest regarding that, we do not have thoughts, we do not have a mental connection between us and that's object, events, things, everything like this. If we do not have a mental connection, we do not have thoughts regarding this. So, one of the important things, if you want to remain without thoughts, or you control your thoughts, is to not have attachments, is to break the mental connection between you and other things that it can disturb you. How you can do that? That's very difficult. It's not very easy to do that. One solution I give you already. Solve the problem. If you have an unsolved problem, solve the problem, and then your mind will break the connection with the problem. As I mentioned in my problem with the email, I send an email, I broke the connection, and my mind doesn't form any thoughts regarding the email. Okay? Do not have desire. If you do not have desire, or if you have few desires, you do not have mental connection with the object of desire. You can do that. It's very difficult to do that. It's very, very difficult to do that. For some people, this is happen naturally. for other people it cannot be happens. Depends on the period of life that you pass in that period of time that you have. For example, I have a desire with phones, I have a desire with cars, I have a desire with house, I have a desire with laptops, I have a desire with everything that is connected with the physical worlds. And in time I realize that this is only objects. I need them to solve some problems. And it's nothing important for my life if I have an iPhone or if I have a Motorola or if I have a Lenovo or if I want to have a phone, for example, and I desire to have a phone which do not create me mental connection. For example, if it is a good phone and works, I do not have a mental connection with that phone because it doesn't make me problems. This is and in my case it's happened naturally. I realized that before to start to practice a spiritual way. But for some people it is not okay, it is not very easy to happen. I have also my desire, not a lot like other people's, I have few, but I try to get it out. I try to remain without that. Okay, how do you remain without thoughts or control the thoughts in meditation? I have my own, let's say my own technique, let's say like this. It's not a new technique, it is a technique that I read it in other books, but I do not realize that it's useful. After I make all the process regarding the thoughts, the external and internal thoughts, I realize two things. One thing that I realize is when I talk, I do not have thoughts. When you talk, if you realize this, if you are enough focused on that, you do not have thoughts. This is the reason that the priest, when they pray to the Lord, they make with loud voice. They said the pray with loud voice. Why? Because they don't have thoughts. That is one of the reasons. Other thing that I do not have thoughts, other situation when I do not have thoughts, and when I stay in meditation, I do not meditate in a quiet room. Or if I I like to meditate outside. Why? Because outside is noise. Birds make noise. Wind make noise. Dogs make noise. Everything that's around you make noise. And if you focus on certain noise on a certain period of time, just focus, just stay with that noise. Do not wonder how beautiful is the noise, how loud it is, who made that noise, and other kind. Do not put any question like this. Just listen the noise and remain with that noise. You will realize that you will remain without thoughts. For example, I hear a sound of the birds, and then I hear another sound of the birds, of another birds. Then I hear the sound of the wind through the leaf. And our mind have the ability to move very, very fast from one subject to another. And if our mind is moved from one subject to another, normally in a natural way, we create thoughts. Our mind creates thoughts. Yeah. When you move your mind through the sound, from one sound to other sound, you remain without thoughts, because it's a natural state of our mind to move from a thing to another. Okay? And this will create a state of mind without thoughts. That's why sometimes in some meditation techniques, in some meditation practice, you will have some music which accompanies you in the meditation. From my point of view, it is very okay but you must to have music or sounds that it's not repeatable. It must to have music or sounds that doesn't have patterns. Why? Because the mind recognizes the patterns, and then when he recognizes the patterns, he moves to other things. So if you want to remain without thoughts, go and meditate. That is my technique. For sure, it exist a lot of techniques, but this is my techniques to remain without thoughts. Go and meditate outside and listen the sounds. Only listen the sounds. And also solve the problem with the attachments. Because if you have a few attachments, day by day fewer attachments, you realize that your mind doesn't have the connection with that and do not form thoughts. That is very simple and very, very efficient. Thank you. Please listen other podcasts that I have here, because from my point of view it's very educative. And subscribe to my channel, because I will give you another future information which helps you in your spiritual evolution. Thank you. Bye bye.